Namaste. Today we speak a little bit about fear. As we know, when confronted with fear, we make one of the two, or rather three responses. First is when we are afraid of something, we want to battle it out, we fight it. The fight response. This is a response which we see in the animal world. When they are confronted with an object of fear, they go ahead and fight it. The second is what we call as the flight response, which means we try to run away from the object of fear. This also we see in the animal world, where when a prey is attacked by a predator, it begins to run, it begins to find a place to hide, it begins to try to escape the chase. And there is a third response which is known as the freeze response. Now, freeze response comes especially when there is both fear and uncertainty. In other words, we do not know the nature of the object, we do not know what it is going to do to us. Now, these responses are found in the animal kingdom and they are good to handle it. But the problem is that with human beings, this response becomes slightly anachronistic, it becomes slightly not in tune with the rest of our being. Because in animal world, we make these responses when there is an actual object in front of us. So let us take an example. If a deer confronts a tiger, it knows there is danger. Or if it can sense or even smell a predator, it knows there is a danger because they pick up both by instinct as well as the senses. But with human beings, something else comes in, and that comes with the presence of the mind. The mind begins to analyze and play with probabilities, with numbers, and begins to calculate, and it enters into an endless debate over what may happen in the future, near future, distant future. Now, this kind of a fear leads to a prolonged response, unlike in the animal. In the animal world, it's a short response, quick response. A tiger rushes after a deer, or a deer tries to escape from a tiger, or a tiger and lion, or a lion and buffalo. They fight with each other. Now, for whatever time, maybe 10 minutes, half an hour maximum, there is this chase, and after that, there is quietude. Either the prey is killed or it manages to escape. All the body mechanisms and the mind mechanisms in an animal are geared for this kind of a onrush of hormones, this kind of an activity in the brain, the heart, and every organ. But with human beings, the problem is that because the thought plays a big part in our life, so this response can be very, very disproportionate. For example, we can start feeling afraid even when the tiger is not in front. We may imagine a tiger. We may even think that maybe there is a tiger prowling on the street. Now, this response recently, for example, people ask questions. So one of the questions was that in my colony, there is somebody with a suspected COVID-19 case. And so I am staying in my house. Do I have reason to be afraid? Now, this is an excessive response because as such you are in the house. Social distancing means keeping about 3 meters away or even 2 meters away, and that should be enough to keep away. But while staying in the house, one is feeling still insecure and still afraid. Now, this is one kind of uncertainty, this is one kind of thought which begins to mount, escalate the fear, and all our responses of the body go haywire. Now, the problem with this kind of response is that when we have these responses for a long time, we are actually exhausting our bodily and mind resources, so that if there is actually a need to fight out, take on the challenge, we won't have enough reserves to actually face the problem. It's the same thing like if every day, I have a certain limited amount of money, and if I am constantly spending it without the real need, then at the end of the day, when I really have a need, I would have no money left with me. So it is important that instead of making this kind of response, we rather learn how to conserve energy. We learn how to augment our defenses so that even if we face the object of fear, we are able to go through it. And not only go through it, we can actually win the challenge. So, what really it means in practical terms, that when we are confronted with fear, there are many mechanisms within us, within our mind, within our body, which we should learn to activate. And one of those mechanisms, there are a number of mechanisms, and we can talk about just a few of them. One of those mechanisms is that we as human beings, unlike the animal world, have access to other possibilities, other domains of consciousness, higher regions of consciousness. We can augment our animal human response with a human divine response. This is uniquely given to man. Even those who do not believe in God believe that there is a greater possibility. At least we believe in progress. That's why all education is there, so that we can increase our thought power, we can increase our powers of emotions, we can increase our power of will. So, the fact that human beings can expand their consciousness is good enough to start with. So, what we have to do is we can enter two kinds of expansion. One, which we can call as a horizontal expansion. Now, what we have to do in this process is, well, let us say we are confronted with a difficult situation and we don't know what's going to happen, and we are every moment living like a frightened deer, with tiger coming from all sides. So during that moment, we need to contemplate. We can do it sitting comfortably anywhere, in a chair or in any posture, even while walking we can do it. We can contemplate the endlessness of time. And we can contemplate the boundlessness of space. Take for example that humanity has gone through several crises. Read about them. Know about our own life. Have we not gone through illnesses, through examinations, through problems, through issues, through challenges, through heartbreaks, through money difficulties, through relationship issues? And we all have navigated through that. That's why we are alive. Not only alive, we are wiser and stronger. So every challenge we can pass, provided we look upon the larger picture of life. Life is not just this little moment. This little moment may be few months, few weeks, few years, even few years. They are like a little wave that will pass away. Even if we were to be taken away, let's say the last worst case scenario, we will be still coming back in a beautiful way, in a new form, stronger, wiser. And if we don't come back, well, there is nothing to fear anyways. Either ways, there is nothing to fear. As the Gita says, it tells to Arjuna that if you take it this standpoint that there is no soul, there is no rebirth, still there is nothing to fear. Then in that case, face the challenge. Either one wins or one loses, either one lives or one dies. But if we believe that there is a constant process of coming and going, even then there is nothing to fear, because when we face a challenge, we equip ourselves better for the period to come, whether in this life or in lives which are yet awaiting for us. As Sri Aurobindo says very beautifully in Savitri, when he talks about fate, he says, O king, our fate is a transaction done between our soul and nature, with God as its foreseeing arbiter. So there is a transaction going on. Our nature may be feeling frightened or responding in one way, another way, and our soul can succumb to it. So this is one kind of transaction. It may start identifying with all that nature is undergoing. Or it can become a witness. So this is one of the techniques which is taught, that be a witness. Observe all these fears, anxieties, see how meaningless they are. See that many of the things we really feel afraid about are really not of so much value. Some of the things we really value. For example, a lot of people feel uncertainty about the money issues which are going to come up and all these things. Well, what we need to really realize is that what is of real value, lasting value? It is love, it is beauty, it is knowledge, it is inner strength, it is courage, it is faith. Can any amount of poverty take it away from us? Can any disease take it away from us? On the contrary, very often outer adversity strengthens these inner qualities and capacities within us. So it's a transaction done. So we can either go flow with nature, or we can stand back and watch, or there is a third element that we can refuse acceptance of whatever nature is dragging us towards. So our fate is a transaction done between soul and nature with God as its forcing arbiter. Man can accept, he can refuse his fate. This is a power uniquely human. We have never exercised it because we are hypnotized from birth. We are taught that, we are filled, life is full of anxiety, full of dangers. In fact, there are two kinds of upbringing that children undergo. One is what I call more animal like upbringing. They are looked after, cared, but they are taught to be paranoid, suspicious, afraid of anything and everywhere in the world. And these are the children who are brought up with the idea that your own life is the only life that matters, that everybody around is an enemy or a competitor, and you have to somehow survive. So you have to think only about yourself and nobody else. Now, this is not a healthy upbringing because it takes away the healthy trust in life which we all should have. See how children, when they have a scratch, they don't think of tetanus. They just get well. Animals, how they respond and get well. But because our mind begins to act, we are constantly worried about survival, that we actually make our survival even more difficult. The whole response becomes counterproductive. So we can refuse, we can say, no, I don't accept this fate. This is uniquely human. There is in us a part which can refuse. So one may ask, but there are people who may not accept it, but still they fall ill. So there is something beautiful Sri Aurobindo has to say there. Even if he maintains the unseen decree. So there is a decree, the scroll of fate. We refuse our fate and yet things happen which we may have refused or not wanted to happen. So what we should do, even if he maintains the unseen decree, he writes thy refusal in your credit page. So there is a credit page in which he writes that no, he faced the challenge, he fought with it, and he may fall. But the fact that we have fought, the fact that we have not simply given up is something very beautiful. So it goes in our credit page. For doom is not an end, a mystic seal. Doom, death, these are not the end of life. They may be the end of one life, but they are not the end of the journey. For doom is not a close, a mystic seal, arisen from the tragic crash of life. Arisen from the tragic crash of life, the spirit rises mightier with each fall. Its godlike wings grow wide with every fall. So the spirit rises mightier with each defeat. Its godlike wings grow wider with every fall. So this should be our attitude and approach, and that is why challenges come. So whenever a challenge comes, it's like a litmus test for us. Just like, the test is done whether a thing is acidic or alkaline. When challenges come, we see two kinds of people. One, who succumb, who break down, who give up. And when we give up, then anyways we have given up. So whether we are saved or not saved, we have, for the future in our life, we have created a groove, a pattern. That means we are the persons who will always give up when we face challenges. And the other kind of response is, which is worthy of being human, noble humanity, that we face the challenge and we face it with this knowledge and awareness that we are not alone. Even within us, we have plenty of resources, a resource which we never use or seldom use because we have developed too much along the left brain analysis, that the left brain, and through reason and analysis we can know. The fact is, uncertainty is there all the time. The fact is that we do not know what is going to happen when we step out of the door next moment. The fact is that when we move on the road, we don't know accidents can happen. Any disease can spring upon us at any time. And yet, we don't think of those things. We step out in front, we go on the road, we meet people because we have something in us which is called as faith. So what we need is to strengthen faith. As Swami Vivekananda said, faith, more and more faith. Faith in ourselves, faith in our destiny, faith in God. So this is the kind of faith that we must carry always burning within. Faith is one of the resources which we don't use, and it's time to activate it, because whenever we are confronted with fear, we must keep faith. And this faith should not be that today I have a faith and tomorrow I see a figure going up or not, down, and we lose faith. Faith is something which persists. Look at those who had faith. Look at the French Revolution. People went to the gallows. It actually outwardly didn't succeed. Even Napoleon, he had to run away. Eventually, he died a death incognito, who was spearheading the revolution. But did the idea force that drove the revolution, the cry of freedom, equality, and fraternity, die? No, it did not die. It returned and it returned and it grew and it continues to grow in mankind. So we must know that we are not just a limited body, we are an idea force in motion. Or, if you want to put it still in a higher way, we are an instrument of God. We are a channel for God's outpouring upon this world. And we, with His help, there is nothing which is impossible for anyone. Isn't it the lesson of the great lesson of the Gita and the Mahabharata? It closes with this lesson that wherever there is Arjuna and wherever there is Krishna, there is victory. There is dharma. There is good. What is meant by Arjuna is the willing warrior, not somebody who is shrinking the great battle of life, whether this battle or any other battle. And what is meant by Krishna is the divine presence within man. So let us move through this great battle of life, not just one battle, but many battles, because through battles we not only acclaim our share of the victory and the joy, but also we acclaim portions of ourselves and we grow out of weakness into strength, out of the shrinking, fearful, cowardly human being into a human being who can hold his head high and walk through life fearless. And fearless is not careless and reckless, fearless and full of confidence and full of joy and full of peace, because he knows that he has the full trust that the divine presence is with him in this life and hereafter and in lives to continue. So let us live our life with faith, and victory will be ours, and victory will be the divine's, and we shall share the joy of that victory. And the joy that we did not succumb, we did not give up, but we fought and fought like a real hero warrior, like a noble and worthy human being.